Andy, good to see you again.
Yeah, see you too, David.
And see you in person, unlike last week where we were working on a major incident with a global outage of Canvas and related to their security incident. So we spent a lot of time together working on that.
Yeah, I hope we can spend more time, but not in a major incident follow-up or remediation exercise. I think it was good to collaborate on a lot of those things. I learned a good bit.
And I did too. And one of the things during that major incident, which spanned a number of hours, we were on that call working together, that you talked about really piqued my interest. And so I thank you for coming today so we can spotlight this. You talked about how your team, how you used AI to help really get us ready to get the platform back in production for our community. And I just thought it was a powerful story. But before we go there, tell us a little bit about your role, how long you've been with Penn State.
Sure. And I've been at Penn State a while. I was a student, came back, and then became employee, but I've been here about 20 years. Been in the academic technology area for a while. My team currently supports a lot of the academic technologies we have. Canvas is one of those, but there's a lot of others in there that we do work on. So I'm part of a 30-member team, and we're it's kind of a matrix organization with the rest of the university, and we support along with instructional designers and our service desk. It's a large group that are involved in supporting a lot of these big services we have at Penn State. I'm positioned in that kind of that middle area where trying to help things run, make sure things work.
Yeah, and you guys do an amazing job. And so let's talk about the problem first for a minute. Frame the problem for us a little bit more. We had this outage. Mm-hmm. Globally. We knew there was a security incident, and we knew the platform was going to come back sort of online.
Yeah.
Canvas would open it back up, but you and your team and our other teams, our security teams, our identity management teams, we wanted to take some steps first. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this was on Thursday. It was the initial reaction of, okay, you got to get some messages out when the system's down, right? But then, well, we're hoping the system's going to come back soon. Right. And it was final exams week for Penn State. So we're sitting there on Thursday night. Students are trying to study. Faculty are trying to get their grades in. All kinds of things are trying to happen. So what we want to do is we want to optimize whenever this system comes back. We want to make sure we can hit it and get it back up and running as quickly as we can. So the challenges we didn't know.
Safely, securely.
Safe and securely, right? So that's the first act. We need to make sure we bring it back in a way that it's gonna work well for folks. And part of that challenge is we didn't know what the system was going to be like. But we did know, based on the experience we had a little breakout session. I pulled our system admins and our developers that are really know Canvas backwards and forwards. We started going through and brainstorming, what's that task list? What does this look like when this thing comes up back online? Because we didn't know what it was going to be. So we get some messaging from the vendor about the state of the system, and we would start going through and assessing it, remediating it, and going through that list.
No, it's great. And at some point, you and the team looked at it and said, hey, listen, we have about 500,000 accounts in Canvas. We're a big institution, and there's a lot of, historical counts and other counts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you all determine one of the steps you have to take is to run a step against every one of those and sort of reset some of the security.
Yeah, so that we knew there's going to be a step in there, and a lot of the other steps were just quick things we can do. But we knew there was this big step in there that we have about 500,000 user accounts, and we need to reset each one. It's a typical type of activity when you bring a system back that you need to reset accounts, clear accounts. We found an API that was going to do everything we needed. It was a single API call, but we had to call it for every single user. So we got through our task list, but we knew this was going to be the action that was going to take a long time.
Well, when you were thinking about this, what was your sort of time? What was your thought about how long this step would take?
Yeah, so that our developers know by experience that an API in Canvas will typically take about 1/10 of a second to run. So doing that basic math off of 500,000 user accounts, we were looking at 17 hours. So just to clean up that one step and adding everything else in there, it wasn't great. We didn't want to have our system down another 15 to 20 hours because, yeah, they're just sitting there running a script.
But I think all of us learned during this incident as we were working on it, all of us learned that this is actually a really important step to take in really helping sort of recover, but make sure we're prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a critical steps. We knew we had to take this. It was not one we could cut out and say, I will do it later. Or we'll bring a system up while we're doing this. I know we talked with you about that, David, and we had that initial conversation. We're like, yeah, we need to do that before we return it to people.
Absolutely. And that's a risk call. We were prepared to make that. So I want to switch because what I really want to talk about, Andy, is your use of AI. So let's pivot over there. What was the inspiration and what was that aha moment like for you to turn to AI to actually help with those 500,000 API calls?
Yeah. So I used to write code, but it's been a while. So when you're sitting in a room with a bunch of developers and you're trying to brainstorm how to make a 17-hour job run faster, the manager will just sit there and listen to everyone. So I try to be useful. So they were talking about going through Python, doing some other things, writing into code differently. So I did my first suggestion was, hey, I can write a curl command in Excel and we can just run that 500,000 times. They all laughed at me, so I muted myself and I went over to AI Studio and I started thinking like, okay, well, what can I do here? And I remember back to one of the activities one of our other developers had done in reviewing some logs, and he had used AI Studio and AI to parse those logs and find some of the actions he had. So he didn't have to do that, hey, load it in Excel, figure it all out. He just did it that way. So I said, all right, well, I wondered if AI Studio can help me here with this. And I knew we had done some PowerShell before, and it's a lot better than curl in terms of making commands. So I'm like, all right, that's enough I need to go off of. So I put in a little 1-2-line statement and say, hey, write me this API call, calling this one API, feed it in a list of users, and try to make it as efficient as possible. It was pretty much the command I gave it. AI went, did his little thing, came back about 10 seconds later, and there was a script. I looked at it, and I used to be a programmer, so I looked at it and said, that actually doesn't look too bad. It had, everything was parameterized. I could see what the items it was trying to call. I could see how I could feed in a file. The only thing I didn't see was that it didn't seem fast. So I said, okay, can you use some parallelism or make it multi-threaded? And I think maybe a for each loop. It went back, did that again, and spit back a script that I then looked at and said, hey, this looks good. So I mentioned to the developers, we're still chatting about using Python. And one of the big challenges we had was that 17-hour job. One of our big ways to speed things up is just to run it for multiple locations, right? That's just the brute force method. So sharing that Python code is going to take a lot of setup for folks. But if it's PowerShell, it's just a copy and paste. Every Windows machine says PowerShell on it, just a couple of commands to update it and get it running. So we knew we could have a parallel way to run this thing if we could get it out there. So I said, developers, I said, hey, I think I'd have a decent PowerShell. Do you guys want to see it? This is also at 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday after these guys have been working for all day, right? So we're all exhausted. I said, sure. So I should have told him.
Sure, Andy. Sure, boss.
Sure,
we'll take a look at
Sure, we'll look
code.
at your code at 10 o'clock at night. And they're just thinking like, I'm taking them down a rabbit hole. Because that's usually how things go. But they took a look at it and it took like a 5-second pause. One of the developers goes, I think that'll work. I don't even know if we need to modify it at all. Let me look at that some more. So this is the other part of the challenge. We did not have a system we could write code against because all Canvas instances everywhere were down.
Yeah, so you couldn't test it.
Yeah.
So you're sort of working on this. This was our contingency work that we were doing ahead of it, the Canvas platform coming back.
Yeah.
And okay, so I want to back up for a second. You mentioned a term that hopefully everyone at Penn State is beginning to understand what you meant, which is AI Studio. So AI Studio is our brand of Nebula One, which is a product we've implemented. It's a multi-model platform that we've made available to our community. And it just went live last month, I think like April 20th. So not even a month ago for faculty and staff. And so that's the tool you were doing this work on.
Yeah, it was. And I was part of the project that did the implementation there. So I've been trying to use it as much as possible to see and assess the functionality and see where we can be used. How does it work well? Because as an IT leader, I need to find out ways that I can either assess this for the future and help train staff or figure out, does it work or does it not work? So this was a big step for me. And I've been using AI a lot for just cleaning up text, the typical types of things that folks do within the
Traditional productivity.
Absolutely. Yeah. But then based on some of that feedback from other folks I had interacted with, they had been using it for looking at logs and more technical items. I had heard, I think, from actually one of my peers here in TLT, hey, Claude is a better model to use with coding. So I'm like, all right, sure. So before I had actually done that scripting, I switched over to Claude, which I had never done with any other my other testing with it, and it worked.
This was your first time to actually use it to have it build a script to do operational administration work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the things we've been having. As part of my team are also developers. So we've been trying to see how can AI help us be more efficient at the jobs, not replace what we're doing, right? I think the expertise that we had was coming in, knowing what API to call, knowing it was going to take a long time, and then writing the script. The initial draft is what it came up with, and we refined that. And it was not much we changed with it. It was just a little bit of air trapping at the end is what we ended up trading.
Yeah, the next day, our platform was up, so the team reassembled bright and early the next morning. And you guys launched this, and then you sort of, as I recall, you added more people running it. You cut the time down. Ultimately, it did not take 17 hours. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we kicked it off, and that was the thing. We knew the script would run fast. We had it set initially to be 5 threads. We then started up, it was not running fast enough, and said, all right, we'll go to 20. And so we went to 20 threads. Oh, okay, that's pretty good. And then we said, all right, let's split up the number let's get more jobs running on different people's machines. They actually got one of my machine running. So I'm there sharing my screen. Okay, how do I run this? Okay, let's put this in there. Then we got it all running. We had, I think, 4 different folks running it with about an hour and a half is what it took. And we ran that on the back end while we did other activities. So we didn't have someone sitting there watching it. It pretty much just freed us all up and we can do this.
At one point, didn't we get throttled by, this is a typical sort of automated response from software's service type vendors like Canvas. So they throttled us because we were generating a lot of traffic.
Yeah, we tried 5 jobs, and at that point, it started throwing errors that we were getting throttled. But we didn't have to stop any of the jobs. We just killed the new one we started up. And the way the script was written, and this was something we always like to add to script, is it had error logging in. So at the end, we could just then take the items that we errored out and then resend them back through. And then that took us 5 minutes to clean that up at the end.
Andy, thank you. This is, for me, just a tremendous example of what we're all trying to do in IT organizations. Use AI smartly with testing.
Yes, with testing.
Even testing against production systems. But you were able to do this, you and the team, under incredible sort of duress. This was an easy 48 hours as being responsible for the Canvas environment. So when you were talking to us about this and we were thinking through all of the contingencies and the planning on our major incident call, I just thought this was really incredible, and I wanted you to share it with our community. It's an amazing example. We're all learning to work differently in this world of AI, and so I love spotlighting this. Andy, thank you. Thank you to your team. Really, thank you for the leadership around this entire event and for a creative use of AI.
Thanks, David. And I think thanks for having those tools out there that we can use for these things, because it's nice when they're available and up and running and all working.